Hey there fellow creators, Ben here from Cinder Studios, and when it comes to working with acrylics, most people believe that acrylics are very much an opaque medium. And while in general they are, and there also are transparent acrylic colors, one thing is for certain, building a good depth of color is essential in making better artwork. Stick around. So why is it important to build up a good depth of color? Creating paintings that have more depth and richness to them, one, makes a better, more interesting painting, and two, just shows that you're a much better artist. And when somebody sees a piece that has a little bit more depth to it, you can go, wow, there's a lot more here than just, oh, it's a pretty picture of something. You can see the intentionality behind the piece. Translucent, more complex colors allow for a wider range and dynamics of color and light and make things in your paintings a little bit more realistic, whether or not your subject matter is or not. So today I've compiled 5 techniques to show you guys how to get different depths of color with your work. The first one is washy base coats, or, underpainting. So for a long time I have sort of avoided underpainting in my work, specifically because it's like, well, it's acrylic, you're just going to cover it up with more paint. Why does that even matter, right? Well, you also tend to forget that whether you're using paint thick or thin, you're still probably going to be able to see some of those colors underneath. It also tricks your brain in a little bit of a way. There's a reason why a lot of artists choose to put like a washy layer of like a red oxide or like a burnt sienna or something over their painting before they get started to fill up all that white space, still maybe showing their sketch underneath. It tricks your brain into being like, okay, I don't have to think about making everything perfectly bright white or that intimidating bright white canvas that a lot of people have a problem with. It's one of those things where it's just like, okay, let's just tone it all immediately, and it tricks your brain into being like, okay, there's already some depth here, let's just start building on top of that. For me, there is also the extra caveat of forcing myself now to not strictly cover everything up with a super opaque layer. It's like, let some of that underlying color show through, and it builds that extra depth of color in the piece. Tip 2, another fun technique is to create sort of a on and off mottled technique with the paint. This is good for, especially if you're going to keep things a little bit more opaque, but thin it out with water a little bit so it flows. Lay down your sort of a simple base color, put another higher contrast color on top of that. So let's say if you're using like a dark blue, switch to like a yellow or like a bright red or something. Apply that down, and then take like a paper towel and just damp it a little bit and pull that color up, and what remains ends up being an interesting textural layer. And then do that again and again as much as you really want to, and build up all of these different, like a little bit of color there, a little bit of color there. Granted, you can do this with a brush, but it's much more fun and much more easy to just lay color across your whole canvas and then damp it away in sections. I did this a bunch when I was in college, and a couple of pieces shortly after that where it was a silhouette of an animal over top of a color that is sort of associated with that animal or that environment. It was a really fun little side project to do and creates a really unique technique. Third, I've been talking about this a bunch the past couple of years, and that's just transparent glazes. Now keep in mind that when you're glazing with acrylics, yeah, you can grab like an acrylic glazing liquid or like a fluid extender, or just use a transparent color. Or you can take things a step further and keep the thickness if you really want to. Get yourself like a nice thick gel and mix up your color that way. And just use a palette knife, spread that around. It still has the same glazing properties without sacrificing the thick impasto of a particular color or whatever you're doing in that piece. If you want that thickness, you can still achieve that thickness while getting the glaze at the same time. I'm finding this to be a very fun thing to do in my work currently. Number 4 is one of those ones that I think is probably going to break some people's rules, but it is important to try this periodically, and that is to don't overmix your colors, especially if you're coming from oils. A lot of the tendency is to mix all of your big piles of color up in advance. A lot of times when I'm working with acrylics, I'm just doing a little bit of brush stuff here and there. Grab some color here, grab some of that color, grab some of that color, and all of those colors are all just jumbled together on my brush. And as I apply that to the canvas, then all of those colors either mix directly on the canvas or they show through in streaky areas. Now, obviously for certain types of painting this is not ideal, but if you force yourself to not sit there and mix everything back into a solid color and let there be opaque sections, let there be transparent sections, let there be sections that are just like, oh, there's a random yellow line running through this string of red. It adds a little bit more complexity and interesting brushwork into your painting. Obviously, not overmixing your colors comes with a little bit of a grain of salt, because you can do it in a way that looks good, and you can do it in a way that looks like you just aren't really trying. So it definitely takes some trial and error to figure out how it will work in your piece. And the fifth and final way to build up a depth of color, this sort of relates back to some of these other tips as well, and that is to start with a bigger knife or brush. Whether you're painting large or small, get yourself a big tool and don't worry about detail right away. Like, even if you're working on something this size, start with this and just block out that color in big blobby areas. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, if you think about a way to sort of build out the shapes and then refine down, there is a distinct need, I think, for a lot of artists to jump straight into the details right away. But until you establish big things like shape, form, base value, it can really free up your brain, and it's like, don't worry about the details right away. Just refine it back, refine it back, refine it back. Using that technique in general is something artists have been doing for centuries, but it's a fantastic way to break yourself out of the more rigid mindset of, I have to paint every single curve perfectly. It's like, no, you don't. Step back. Hold your brush way back. Hold your arm way back. Stop worrying about details so much. Detail at the end. At the end of the day, it's important to know that all of these techniques are bits and pieces of a greater whole. Don't try to necessarily do just one of them in a piece. I mean, it's good to practice that way, but combine them. Take some of the glazing techniques. Get the big knife. Use that with some thicker glazes or something. Experiment. Play. Let yourself have a little fun. And in my work right now, that's what I'm doing and forcing myself to do a little bit more. Take a step back from the details. Just slap some paint on a canvas and then refine on top of that. Builds a great depth of color, a much more interesting painting, and allows you to free your creative process up a little bit. But I'm curious what you guys have to say on this one. How do you build greater depth of color in your work? Whether you're doing so with more transparent glazes or building things up with thicker areas of paint, dry brushing a little bit, who knows? But using more than just, I don't know, 2 or 3 layers of paint is important in any piece. It shows your intentionality, it shows your general skill, and shows that you care more about the piece that you're creating beyond just slap 1 layer of paint on it and call it done. Build yourself some depth of color, round out your values, explore, experiment, and just have fun. That's going to do it for this video, though. As always, if you enjoyed this, learned something, or just like hearing me talk about art stuff, go ahead and hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts in comments below. Check me out. Check my socials in the description as well, including stuff like community Discord, my own website where you can just sign up for my newsletter and hear about all the in-progress stuff and how I'm developing all these different techniques and how I'm utilizing stuff like this in my studio every single day. Get subscribed if you're not already. And this has been reminding you to keep on creating, stay inspired, and I'll see you guys next time.